Hey students, just want to cover one more thing in section 210, max and minimum values. Now what's going on here is you're taking values that were rounded and you're trying to find what the minimum and maximum could actually be in real life. So numbers have already been rounded and you need to subtract to find a minimum value that it could be in real life, or add to find the maximum value it could be in real life. So here's kind of the shortcut for you. If anything is ever rounded to the nearest whole number, the fastest way to find the minimum and the maximum is to subtract a half and add a half. If anything is ever rounded to the nearest half number, half inch, half foot, half mile, you subtract a quarter and add a quarter to get the minimum and the maximum. That goes on to whatever you're rounding to the nearest. You just chop it in half and you go plus and minus that half. So if you're going to like the nearest quarter, then you would want to go plus and minus the nearest eighth. Okay? So let's do some problems here really quick. To the nearest inch, my height was rounded to 76 inches. I'm 6'4", but usually you round to the nearest inch most of the time. So how tall could I actually be if I rounded to the nearest inch? Well, if you round to the nearest inch, you have to add or subtract a half to get the minimum and the maximum. So if you subtract a half, so minus 0.5, I could actually be 75.5 inches tall. And then if I add a half to get the min and the max, sorry, I'm kind of writing the same answer in two places, I could add a half. So I could actually be 76.5 inches. So all you do is you take the number it was rounded to, and if it's rounded to the nearest whole value or the nearest inch, minus and plus a half. So this is how tall I could be in real life. I'm somewhere in between there, the nearest inch, right? In real life. Again, this is rounded. Okay, we usually round answers to make them nice, but in real life, we know that real numbers don't always make nice numbers. So that's why we round. So we're trying to find how far off we could be. To the nearest half mile, the distance from Tiffin to Oxford is 7.5 miles. Okay, so it's rounded the nearest half mile. Okay, we're trying to be more accurate. Usually the smaller you round to, the more accurate your distance is. All right, so we rounded the nearest half mile. So we're saying, oh, it's about 7.5 miles. Well, if we rounded to the nearest half mile, where could it actually be? Well, if you take away a quarter now, okay, nearest half mile means you could be plus or minus a quarter mile. So if you take a quarter away, it could be 7.25 miles for the minimum. The maximum, it could be 7 3/4 miles. Okay, that's it. All you do is you take where you rounded, chop that in half, so half of a half is a quarter, and then you add and subtract to whatever you rounded to. So this is where it could be in real life. That's the minimum, that's the maximum. Up here we rounded to the nearest whole, so we did plus and minus a half for the maximum and minimum. That's all you gotta do. If you follow this, you're gonna be good to go. You gotta pay attention to what it says. If you round to the nearest whole, plus and minus a half. Nearest half, plus and minus a quarter. Okay? So you always got to take the rounded value and you subtract or you add half of what you rounded to find the minimum and the maximum. That's it. Goodbye.